Welcome everybody to the Too High Podcast. I am Seth Galina alongside Deontay Lee, and we have a very special guest with us. PFF COO, former Notre Dame Irishman, Austin Collinsworth is with us. So very excited to. This is Austin Gayle. Okay. Oh, I made a mistake there. Well, that sucks actually. We have Austin Gayle with us today on the Too High Podcast. Austin, what's going on?
Doing well, man. Honestly, Notre Dame, that school sounds awful. I mean, I don't want to. I mean, from what I've heard, no girls allowed in the dorms. I mean, it's probably super expensive. I mean, I don't envy Austin Collinsworth. I'm sorry I couldn't live up to the hype here, but I'm happy I did not go to Notre Dame. But I'm not happy I'm not the COO, I guess.
Yeah, I think when we talk about personality types, the person who goes to San Diego State is probably about as far as you can get from the kind of person who would want to go to Notre Dame. Dude,
I mean, you hear, I don't remember who the player was, right, who was talking about how he decommitted from Notre Dame after he found out, you could not, invite women into your dorm. I apologize for not remembering the player, but, that is a legit reason, right? I mean, that's, insane, right? I mean, it's just a very insane premise to go to Notre Dame and, have that vibe. I mean, it's a reason why Mike Renner is the monster he is now, right? He couldn't let it out in college.
Right.
Repression. Exactly. If you don't, light it up in college and, get through some of these mistakes, you end up being a 31-year-old bachelor who lives on the banks of Cincinnati. That's where Mike Renner's at right now.
I don't know. I don't know what the explanation is for Seth in his situation.
There is no explanation.
It's funny you mentioned Renner because you talk about where he is in his life now, and I don't know if you remember this, Austin, but we were hanging out at the Banks in Cincinnati when I was there in the summer, and it was my first time being there. And the Banks is basically this strip between the baseball stadium and the football stadium. And so we're having a good time. We're having some libations, having a good time. But it's a loud area, a very party-friendly, frat boy type of.
It's a bar strip, right?
It's a bar strip, right? It's 20. You're 20. You're hanging out there. Mm-hmm. And then I noticed there was apartments on top of the strip, and I was talking to you, and I was like, what kind of fucking loser would live here? And you're that's Renner's apartment right there.
Renner has lived at that apartment, I think, for the last 2 or 3 years, dude. He legitimately loves that place. He is thinking about moving and settling down as he gets to 32, 33 years old. But that was I do remember that. I mean, there's a lot of people, right, who are man, I would never live down here. You're right above the bars. They're open till 3. And Renner's dude, come on up, dude. We got some after party at my place now. But I love Renner. I'm always making jokes, dude. That guy's got the life, dude. He's got former bachelorette contestant or whatever it is. This guy's living the dream.
He really is. Let's actually stick on Notre Dame as a theme here, because you and Mr. Mike Renner went on a tailgate tour. Your podcast is called PFF Tailgate. You guys went on a tailgate tour. I was a part of it for 1 week in South Bend at Indiana. So we just kind of want your thoughts on all the places you went to, top places, bottom places, in a segment I like to call Places Mike Renner Has Taken a Shit. And that is sponsored by Western and Southern. Want a chance to win the ultimate game day feast, whether it's football success or financial savvy? Winning starts with asking us questions. Would you like to know what it's like behind the scenes with Al Michaels or Mike Tirico on Sunday Night Football? How about a need to know for your financial future? Western and Southern is teaming up with PFF's very own Chris Collinsworth to share insights that can help put you ahead on both your fantasy and financial scoreboards. Every submission earns you a chance to win the ultimate feast to celebrate football's favorite Sunday. We'll cover your catering up to $2,500. Coordinate your order from a restaurant near you and have it delivered on February 13th, 2022. And don't forget to check out the Chris Collinsworth podcast and Western and Southern's Instagram for answers to the best questions each week. Submit your questions at westernsouthern.com/askchris. One more time, that is westernsouthern.com/askchris. If you're watching on YouTube, check out the link in the description below. Remember, with the Western and Southern, you can rest assured on game day. Okay, so favorite places you went to this season as part of the tailgate tour?
I have a few things there. One, you call it the PFF tailgate. It is just tailgate. It's just tailgate. So you brought up Austin Collinsworth at the top here. We were pitching names on what we wanted to rebrand our podcast to, because it was formerly 2-for-1 drafts, and we wanted to move away from a draft, whatever. But we were oh, what about the tailgate? And he's like, drop the, like the Facebook, you're like from Social Network. He's like, drop the, and I was like, fuck, dude, all right, I'm in. Like Austin Collins with a massive contribution to the podcast. But and the other thing, I'm usually the one on the tailgate, or I almost called it on tailgate, where I read those ads. So hearing you step in to do the ad reads is pretty impressive as well. Favorite trips, man. I mean, the one you were on was awesome. We went up to South Bend. It was the Cincinnati Notre Dame game. Mike Renner like literally shit his pants. It was like it was an insane trip, dude. It was an insane trip, start to finish. He also like hated me at that game because I was diehard Bearcats.
Yeah, you were wearing the Kelsey jersey.
Yeah, the Travis Kelsey jersey. So and he like had to like leave at half because they were getting blown out. He had to like take a lap because he was so upset at me. But that was a fun one, right? Getting you in there was cool. In terms of like location, though, I mean like. Dude, Penn State for the fucking whiteout was absolutely insane, dude. Like that is, if that is not on your bucket list and you have seen a football, I don't care if you watch it, like you've seen the ball, that is a mistake because it was electric, dude. It was something I've never seen before. They were louder, I'll swear to God, they were louder, honestly, than any NFL. Like I went to a lot of Raiders games. I'm from Oakland and had season tickets. Any of the Raider game, an hour before it started, dude, they were packed into that stadium. We were in the press box, like getting food or whatever, and they were screaming, chanting, singing an hour before this game starts. Like it was that wideout was legitimately insane from an atmosphere perspective. Big fan of that one. I think the Alabama trip was insane. Why Alabama recruits differently? The sorority strip, we talked about girls in the dorms. Sorority strip is in front of the football stadium. So like you walk out of the stadium, the sorority strip's right there. It's just like this atmosphere like where the entire town is college. Like everyone there is going to the school. Everyone there is supporting the school. It's a crazy atmosphere there too. And the tailgate scene there was insane. I think worst trips, I hate to say it to you, Seth, but honestly, when we went to Death Valley, it was grim. I mean, they were wanting him out. This was the Florida LSU game that they surprisingly won. But talking to a lot of the people there that were tailgating, which was very slim, there were not a lot of people at this game. You know, they're like, oh man, he's got to get fired. We want Napier. We want Fickle. It was we were expecting this big pageantry, right, of LSU, but it was pretty grim. And I think we went to Kentucky. That game stunk. I mean, Kentucky doesn't have shit. I mean,
that was Kentucky LSU, right?
Yeah, that was Kentucky LSU, where like Kentucky's
good.
not a big tailgate scene either. But
well, that's why the Baton Rouge tailgate sucked, because they had just lost to Kentucky the week before.
Yeah, and I do feel that, you know, like you can't grade every tailgate. It depends on how good the team is, right? Like going back to Baton Rouge when they were going to be like in the running, right, with Brian Kelly and his family, I think is going to be it's going to be a better time. But I mean, the top tailgates I think I'll highlight were Alabama, Penn State, Ann Arbor. When we were there for Ohio State, was absolutely absurd. One of the craziest weekends of my goddamn life up there in Ann Arbor when they won that Ohio State game. And then probably bottom tailgates were probably Kentucky and LSU, just because the teams were not obviously all that great.
I mean, to me, you know, as a West Coast kid, I mean, all the Big Ten night games, those are all the bucket list items. So going to the Shoe, going to Ann Arbor, going to Penn State, going to Happy Valley, and seeing all those games in those nighttime atmospheres, you know, especially because they're relatively rare in the Big Ten. Those are all high on the bucket list. I would say I've never done a tailgate experience at SC, but SC is really not built for that so much. You know, I mean, the campus being right in the middle of Inglewood, you know, it's so congested, it doesn't necessarily lend itself to that. But the Coliseum, when SC is good, that's still probably the best experience on the West Coast. Seth, is there any other college, you know, experience that maybe you have or would like to have that you haven't come across yet?
Before I answer, I want to ask Austin if he remembers the press box food at Nippert Stadium when we went to see Cincinnati versus Temple.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Oh my gosh,
boiled hamburgers.
Dude, don't. I mean, so it was the worst. It was the second to worst press box food on the trip. So Cincinnati food was terrible, but at least you could get as much as you want. When we went to Kentucky, bro, I've never seen this before. They give you a meal voucher where you could only have half a Subway sandwich. You could like no press box I've ever seen before gave you a meal voucher where you could only have like a half a Subway sandwich, a bag of chips, and a cookie. And they're like, dude, nothing else. That's it. You're done. And they had this like old ass dude in the Kentucky gear like guarding the sandwiches that were like there were hundreds. There were hundreds that were just gonna throw away, and they're like, nope, one voucher per person. But yeah, Cincinnati food that was a disgrace as well. But
that whole experience in the press box was a disgrace. I will say though the here in Canada, there are some good tailgates. And in Quebec City, which is about 3 hours north-ish of Montreal, where the Université de Laval play, they've won like 10 national championships in the past like 25 years. That they go wild there because like the only team there, there's no, there's a minor league hockey team, but that's about it. So that's pretty big. I would have been lucky that I went to, I think, the second ever Michigan night game against Penn State in like 2013, 2014. That was wild. The Notre Dame game this year was wild until the game, because Cincinnati just kind of sucked the life out of that game. They're good for them, and obviously like that they're a good team. But like you're always hoping when you go to a place as a neutral that the home team is in the game.
Yeah.
Right? That's like the main thing. You just want to see the home team like at least score. I went to see Syracuse at home against Clemson. The Carrier Dome, considering it's named after like an air conditioning company, was the hottest fucking place I've ever been. We were all sweating so bad.
I think that is still today the only domed stadium that we have in football that is not air conditioned.
Wow.
It's
because they haven't I don't think they've updated the construction there basically since it was
Is it named after an air conditioning company too?
Carrier. I'm pretty sure Carrier is like some sort of air ventilation circulation type of situation.
This has been a phenomenal start to the show.
I think so.
Carrier Corporation. Go ahead.
Let's get into football then. I would say like before we get into that, what for next year? Now I know whether or not you do this as big as you did it this year. Is there one place now, or one or two places that you're like, all right, I got to get there.
I can't give too much away, Seth. There's a lot of listeners that want to know the schedule, but I can give one game away.
It's January 2022. Like, come on, no one's listening to this.
The plan is we are going to the Alabama-Texas game in Austin. That is one of the bigger games we're excited to be at. Quinn Ewers, Bryce Young, Austin, Texas should be quite the treat. We're excited for that one. I think College Station is on our list. Athens is on our list. And trying to get out to some of those games. But our big thing this year we went to so many freaking games, dude. We went to like 12 games, and it was
every weekend.
The travel was insane. I literally can't do it again. I think we're going to go to like maybe 4, 5, or 6 games at most. Probably get talked into 8, and then it goes 10. But like we're gonna try and only go to like 4 to 6 games next year. But like really do it up and plan these bigger events, and we're gonna get some cornhole bags branded as Tailgate. You guys are more than welcome to join, dude. I don't know if we'll make it out to the West Coast. Maybe with Lincoln Riley there, who knows? But for right now, I think the biggest game on our schedule for sure is that Texas Bama game at home.
Have any of you been to Washington, like Husky Stadium?
Yeah, in Seattle. That place is phenomenal.
Looks,
one of the prettier stadiums.
That's what I was going to say.
I'll say it's one of the better looking stadiums.
Yeah, I'd be into going there. Okay, all right, that's enough. Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL. Go.
This is an interesting conversation.
Talk about it.
So if you're a betting man, you can't bet on this. It's TJ Watt. TJ Watt has won the award from a betting market's perspective. You physically cannot bet on the award because he is such a glaring favorite. And I've gone on this rant before on the Tailgate pod. And I say, if you want to know who's going to win Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL, just Google who leads the NFL in sacks, and you should be all right. That's it. That's all it takes. That's literally all the award is. So, there's all this freaking discussion on who should win it, and I watch more film, and I've ground so much tape, and it's like, dude, the award is a joke. The award is a box score Madonna in it, that it's whoever has the most sacks, or in some cases the most picks. If you do get in, Diggs was in the running, right? Diggs was in the running until I think TJ Watt broke the sack record for the.
Well, until Deontay killed it.
Yeah.
Deontay
literally went.
For the purpose of clarity, I want to say that was a quote tweet on Steve's tweet. Okay, I want to direct some of that heat in his direction.
I do think I want to touch on that tweet because I saw that tweet. I liked it. I liked the discourse on Trayvon Diggs. Fire people up, dude. That's what Twitter's about. When you said his interceptions are disguising one of the worst cornerback seasons ever, I was like, holy shit, my guy.
I knew it was coming. Yeah, I knew it was coming.
I was like, dude, you absolutely. I mean, I'm all for Trayvon Diggs as the Jameis Winston of corners. I'm all for he's allowed more yards than anybody. But man, worst freaking cornerback seasons of all time. Well, I was like, this guy's fired up.
I'm glad you brought up Jameis because I think that I wouldn't compare it as a 1-to-1 to like the 30 interception season. Yeah. But if you're talking about like how to contextualize that with other seasons where you're looking at like, oh, I'm going to focus in on this one metric when everything else is saying that maybe he's not the best player in the world. That is kind of the comparison I'm drawing.
Yeah. No, I mean like. And I don't want to derail the conversation too much on the Trayvon Diggs stuff, right? But it is a good conversation around Defensive Player of the Year. But like 11 picks, Trayvon Diggs has played 800 snaps this year, and you're gonna say 11 plays is why he's Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, that's a big reason why PFF does what it does, right? Like grading
that's
players
why we
on every
exist,
play.
right?
That's why we exist. Especially for pass rushers, right? Pass rushers, it's such a binary win. It's so much more of a binary win and loss, right? Where you have this opportunity to win or lose on every play. With corners, right? Are you targeted? Are you not targeted? If you were targeted, would you give it up a touchdown? What if the receiver dropped it? There's less of a binary result with cornerback play. It's why some of the off coverage grading at PFF is going to see such drastic improvement, right? We're already starting an off ball coverage process or all coverage process to see more of that stuff. Right. That's what NFL teams want. That's what agents want, all this shit. But for pass rushers, right? You are literally graded on every single play, whether or not you beat your block or did not beat your block. And that's why those are some of the stickiest grades, sticky being year-over-year stable that PFF tracks. For corners, right, it is a little bit more volatile because there isn't such an efficient process with some of the off-ball grading stuff. But like Trayvon Diggs is Defensive Player of the Year and the best corner in the NFL because of 11 plays. 11 fucking plays. And if you turn on some of those plays, not all of those are like insane interceptions where he is sticky in coverage, snap to whistle, and making a play on the ball. Some of those are gifted to him from bad quarterbacks. I'm not bagging on Trayvon Diggs. Like Trayvon Diggs has had 11 picks this year. I'll leave it at that. For Defensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt will win it. It's not even close. Who should win it? I mean, you look at it from a who's winning and making maybe the biggest impact on the game. I think it's Aaron Donald, but the discussion is voter fatigue, right? No one wants to vote for fucking Aaron Donald anymore. That's just a fact. And I think TJ Watt leads the NFL in sacks by I think 1.5. He has an opportunity, I think, with 2 sacks to like break the single season record, which throw all the records out the window with the extra game. But I think Watt ultimately wins it. And hell, I mean, fuck, he deserves it. I think the conversation is kind of lame.
It's funny. Had that Monday night game not gone the way that it did, I probably would have entertained the fact that Trayvon Diggs could have been in the conversation, or at least be closer in the conversation to win Defensive Player of the Year, because you have to recognize the fact that 11 interceptions is rare. There's a reason why you don't bump into that. The all-time leader in the NFL set that record during the Korean War, and it hasn't been broken. Okay, so like it's hard to get to double digits, period, and then get to that 11, 12, 13 type of mark. So obviously you have to recognize it for the rarity. And to your point about Aaron Donald, I think I tweeted about it a couple of times, but like as much as it sucks to say, Aaron Donald is LeBron James now. Like, you're not competing for Defensive Player of the Year in 2021. You're also competing against all the other Defensive Player of the Years that you won years prior. Like, we all know that you're the best player in the world. I think everybody kind of bows to that, and we understand that. And it sucks that you can't get the recognition that you probably deserve year over year. But with what you're saying about TJ Watt, like, you cross the 20 sack threshold, you're winning Defensive Player of the Year.
Exactly.
I don't care what else happens with any other player in the NFL. Once you hit 20 sacks, dude, the award is yours, period.
Yeah.
You want to know how you get double-digit picks in a season? Quarterbacks and offenses continue to target you.
Yeah, true.
That's probably...
It's a fact.
Yeah. You compare that to, AJ Green beat him on a double move in the year 2022. Let's not have this conversation.
That was a rough one.
That was a rough one. But
that was a bad one.
Go back to like the Nnamdi Asomugha season. That season, I think it was like 2008 with the Raiders when I was still a season ticket holder. Rise up. That season, I think he was targeted like 19 times, and it was one of the best like cornerback seasons we've ever seen at PFF. But he wasn't sniffing. Defensive Player of the Year. No one even knew who that guy was. That's like the beauty of it, right? Like AJ Terrell's another good example. He probably won't make.
I was going to say AJ Terrell is the guy that comes to mind right now.
He might not make an All-Pro team even because he doesn't have some of the picks and stuff like that. I think the Atlanta Falcons have done a good job from a social media perspective pushing him, and that matters, right? You get me on this call. I'm not the COO, but like there's a lot of content mind in me, and like you think about AJ Terrell and like how the Falcons have pushed him and how they've leaned into PFF grades and like really tried to show like, hey, this guy's playing really fucking well. It could be in the conversation for All-Pro. Like voters are humans, right? This isn't a computer that spits it out. They look at box score stats, but they also look at Twitter. So Twitter promotion is a really big part of that too. And I think they've done a good job with Terrell to a point where he'll get Pro Bowl votes. He might even get All-Pro votes. But yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a tangent, but I still feel that the best cornerbacks in the NFL don't get targeted. That's it, point blank, period. Yeah. The best. It's not about picks. It's about not getting targets. And I think yards allowed per coverage snap and targets allowed or targets received per coverage snap are more better indicators than picks will ever be.
I do have a question almost kind of separate from who's going to win the award. If we were to set this up kind of like the way that the Heisman ballots are, where you're kind of listing out 5 guys, do you think that Micah Parsons would make would he make your top 5, and would you predict that he would make the top 5 as like the consensus defensive player of the year?
Absolutely. I apologize. I'm going to apologize to listeners for not bringing up his name earlier in the conversation, right? We kind of got on a tangent on Trayvon Diggs, but Micah Parsons has had a season that honestly I don't know if we'll see again from a rookie, right? I mean, him coming in, having missed the entire 2020 season for opting out of COVID, playing a position he legitimately did not play at Penn State, and being the best rookie pass rusher and borderline a top 5 pass rusher this year is one of the most absurd things we've ever seen. I mean, it's literally the most absurd thing probably we've seen since Lawrence Taylor. And Lawrence Taylor was a pass rusher. Lawrence Taylor played pass rusher in college. So Micah Parsons deserves all the credit in the world. Another bet you can't make right now is who wins Defensive Rookie of the Year. Right. He's locked it up. He might have locked that up in Week 14. Right. He's going to get his due. That guy's will get some Defensive Player of the Year awards in his future, I'm sure. And that's another part of the conversation that I think is interesting, right? Like, voters want multiple people to win these things. Voters want, there's fatigue is real. Like they want, when it's not obvious that one player should win it again and again, they want to spread the wealth a bit and have and entertain more players. It's what creates better content. It's what creates more conversation. So I do think Micah Parsons, if he plays 80% as good as he did this year, I think there are going to be some conversations for Defensive Player of the Year moving forward.
I was thinking about Parsons because I wrote about him on the website. Go to pff.com, find my article on Parsons and Dan Quinn. But one of the things that I think was really interesting for me, I didn't realize this. I saw it a little bit in the preseason when I was watching him, kind of figuring out where they were going to play him, right? Because that was the thing. Like even from the beginning, is he going to play edge? Is he going to play off-ball linebacker, like full time? And then you realize that Dan Quinn already had this position. I didn't realize this until I started writing this article this week. Going back and looking at when he was with the Falcons, he has this position where you have a guy who plays off-ball linebacker, and then in certain packages will come down and play defensive end. And it's like, oh my God, this position was literally built for Micah Parsons. It is the most perfect matchup of like scheme and coaching and a player being picked. And they traded down, right? Like 3 picks or something?
I don't think so. Or maybe they did. I don't remember actually.
So like just the fact that they found this player who fits Dan Quinn. Because like a lot of guys, you put them on so many other teams, and maybe he just plays Will. Right, that's it. And then he just plays Will, and even with DeMarcus Lawrence going down, they don't move him to edge rusher, and then he's a really good Will. But where he gets like that surplus value is him moving down to defensive end, usually in their 5-man looks. And then now with DeMarcus Lawrence back, they bring DeMarcus Lawrence inside on the guard, and Micah Parsons on the tackle, and that's a 1-2 punch that is. And Randy Gregory's having a great season too on the other side. Like I don't know how you stop that. And then they rush Micah Parsons from the off-ball linebacker spot. Literally, he's lining up in front of a guard with a 5-yard head start. This is as good. It's as good as of a pairing between like I said, scheme and coaching and player that could have happened, honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and to add, they did trade down. They traded down from 10 to 12, picked up the third-round pick for the Eagles. Eagles trading up for Devontae Smith. And I think the only reason that Micah Parsons even fell to that spot, right, was a lot of the off-field stuff that we very quickly, as the NFL does, brush under the rug or the carpet, whatever that expression is. But I mean, the blue chip talent was always there. I think the reservations were some of the off-field concerns, legitimate off-field concerns with maturity and some of the decisions he made in college. In addition to that, not playing in 2020. There was this whole, we haven't seen him do it, over a season. He had that big game against Memphis in the bowl game, and they're like, oh my God, Micah Parsons could be it, but then we didn't see him in 2020. He falls to 12. Dallas wanted a corner. All the reports show that they wanted either Surtain or Horn, and then they're not available right at that spot, so that's why they ultimately end up trading down and land, guess what, into the best rookie of any player. I mean, maybe you could even argue best rookie this year at number 12.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I mean, I felt like before you hit that 20-sack threshold or TJ Watt, takes over in the second half of the year, there were games where I was watching the Cowboys. I was like, it's not only that the data suggests that this might be the rookie of the year and a defensive player of the year. To Seth's point about the way that he's being used, there's kind of a visceral reaction you have to this freaky 6'5", 235-pound guy that takes off up the field and is just hip tossing guards. Yeah. You're not supposed to do that as a rookie. You're never supposed to be able to do that as a rookie. And to your point of, having a coach that's going to say, hey, this guy who runs a 4.4 at this size, go ahead and rush the passer because we need you. And then you're just going to bump right back to backer and be a really good inside backer, in all the ways that they're able to rush 5 and create all these problems for teams. When we talk about identities and matching it up with players, it's not just him. It's not just Trevon Diggs. When you think about situations, I can't imagine that there's a better one that exists right now for a rookie outside of maybe Patrick Surtain being with Vic Fangio. Yeah. As far as the way your style of play and the philosophy of the coach that you're playing under. That's about as good of a marriage as you're going to see for a rookie in the NFL.
Surtain, another guy, too, that is not going to get the love in Pro Bowl votes and All-Pro voting because he has not gotten a ton of targets this year, but he has been pretty damn phenomenal for the Denver Broncos this year. With Parsons, I think you highlighted this in your piece, Seth. But tip your cap to Quinn, dude. Dan Quinn there are not very few, but it's not a ton, right? Defensive coordinators that are willing to just let a guy cook like that and play to his strengths and run that way. There are coordinators, right, that'll say, and Deontay, you're a coach, man. You've probably seen these guys before where they're like, I don't care. This is the position you play, and this is what you're going to do. That's just the bottom line. And in my defense, this is what you play. And those are oftentimes the worst coaches, right? Because you got a guy like Parsons, you pretty much let him do whatever the hell he wants and whatever best puts him in a position to succeed. And Dallas has done that literally week in and week out. There's been games where he's rushed the passer 40 times, and there's been games where he's rushed the passer 15. And I think having that versatility and all that stuff. And it's also a credit to Parsons, right? Parsons being selfless in that I'll play whatever the hell you guys want me to play. I'm here to contribute to the team. I think he's been just such a positive for that football team, in a lot of ways, more ways than one.
All right, let's move on to something that I didn't bring up with you guys before, but it just hit me that three of us have something in common, a little bit here. We are all from places where a professional sports team has moved from the city we grew up in. So the Montreal Expos moved to Washington. The Oakland Raiders moved to Las Vegas recently. You are from that area, Austin. And then, Deontay, even though you're not a Chargers fan, you do live in San Diego, and you saw that team left. So I'm just going to get your thoughts on kind of what that was like in the city, or how your fandom has changed. I'm very interested in that. In a segment I'm calling "Where Did My Childhood Go?" presented by Manscaped. Cheers to 2022 and resolutions you can actually keep. How about having clean and shiny skin all year round? Our sponsors at Manscaped are here to save your balls this year and make the ball drop into 2022 the cleanest and sexiest ever. Set your first New Year's resolution with good intentions and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code PFF for 20% off and free shipping. Set your first New Year's resolution with good intentions and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code PFF for 20% off and free shipping. I know, Austin, you have the products, I have the products. They're fantastic. They really are just like perfect for what you for what you need, and the razor is as good. The lawnmower 4.0 is amazing. All right, so 20% off and free shipping with promo code PFF. Okay, so Austin, you are still.
You're not going to read the best part of that read. I have that same read, Seth.
Optional.
It's new year. No. It's new year, no pubes in 2022 with Manscaped. That's the best part of the read.
It's new year, It's new year, no pubes in 2022 with Manscaped.
The best one in the Manscaped reads, in my opinion, we had them for Christmas, right? And it was "Make Santa Proud this year." Make Santa proud this year with Manscaped. Oh my God! I'll tell you what. You said I use the products. Santa has been the proudest man in freaking Cincy over here because I've been out here grinding. It's a basketball court down there. It's sleek and slim. But yeah, for fandom wise, I will talk about what was the segment? Where'd your childhood go?
Where did my childhood go? It's more for me because the Expos left like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But you're still a Raiders fan?
Yeah, a lot of it.
You go on.
I mean, I'm a Raiders fan. I think a lot of it is because my dad is still a Raiders fan, and I feel like we connected a ton when I was a kid over that because he had season tickets since like 2004, and we had season tickets up until I left for San Diego State. So like a lot of it, it's hard to still. I mean, I sound like an asshole when you're an analyst. No, but like it is hard to still be a fan and like have some of this like blind, fandom or fanaticism or whatever over teams, but I still am a Raiders fan for whatever reason, whatever that's worth. When they left Oakland, man, I mean, my big thing was like, dude, they had to. I mean, that Oakland Coliseum stinks. There's a reason the A's are leaving. The city wasn't willing to put any money into a new stadium, and then Vegas came around. They're like, we'll buy it. Like they told Mark Davis, who's one of the poorest owners in the NFL, like, hey, we will literally pay for this stadium out of pocket to make sure you come here. And you could talk about the negative impacts on the team, right? We've already seen some of the off-field stuff. I mean, it could have been regardless of decision-making, but Vegas is a tough time. It's a tough town to make good decisions. Can we all agree on that? It's fucking Sin City for a reason, man. That thing doesn't sleep, and it's aggressive, and it takes a lot of discipline, it takes a lot of maturity to go there and like really compete, right? I mean, it's a tough one. I think you also talk about how it's a tourist town, like San Diego is. It's a big reason why the Chargers left. Chargers left because everyone wants to go to San Diego to watch their team play San Diego, whether it was Arizona. The Raiders had a huge following in San Diego, and same with Vegas, right? I think a lot of opponent fan bases are like, I want a reason to go to Las Vegas. My favorite team plays the Raiders on this date. So I do think they're going to struggle with a lot of that stuff. But in terms of making money, which is what everything's about, I think Mark Davis is buttering his pockets pretty nicely. So I kind of see the business side of it. As a fan, like I don't really care. My dad doesn't really care either. He loves Vegas, for those who don't know. I think that there's some obvious there. But yeah, I mean, it didn't really affect my fandom a ton. I remember my dad being pissed that they moved to LA, right? Because they moved to LA, won 2 Super Bowls, and then came back. So technically the Oakland Raiders only have 1 Super Bowl, and the LA Raiders have 2. But he doesn't bring that up. The Raiders have 3 as a total. But that's probably how it impacted me the most.
I mean, for me, as not a Chargers fan, but as an observer just to the city, like it was honestly, I think what happened was ultimately the general apathy of the city is kind of what took over that whole situation. Very similar to what was happening in Oakland, and we were actually drawing a lot of parallels at the time in the city based on the Chargers move and relocation and what was happening in Oakland, because a lot of it was kind of born of the same things, right? Like outdated stadium. You're kind of landlocked in the area that you're in. That's something that I know about where the stadium's at in Oakland and that Alameda area. Like that compound that they have is basically the only place that's available that's not going to be extremely intrusive on other areas because it's so densely populated in the Bay Area. We're kind of dealing with the same thing here, or we were dealing with the same thing here with the Chargers in that Mission Valley area. I mean, that having gone to SDSU, right? Like Qualcomm Stadium, or San Diego County Credit Union Stadium, what it was called, is basically right across the freeway from San Diego State. And you can see like the residential areas, even the commercial areas, there just wasn't a lot of space to move. And when that's the case, now you're talking about where do you build and then where are you getting the money from? Yeah. And they missed the boat. Like the truth of the matter is that they missed the boat. When the Padres left Qualcomm to go create Petco Park, that was the time.
Which is sick, by the way. Petco Park is fucking
like probably, sick. A top 3 stadium you could say in the MLB, and one of the best stadiums, one of the best sports stadiums that we have in the country. It's a great experience. But that was the time. If you were looking for that red flag when it was time to go, it's when the baseball team left. And they stuck it out. Everybody kind of has their feelings about the Spanos family out here. They have a reputation of kind of penny pinching. I think that a lot of that criticism kind of carried over when they went to LA and played in the soccer stadium for that first year in order to try to avoid, the leasing rights that Kroenke was trying to charge them to play in SoFi, right out the gate. So there's a lot of justified frustration for Chargers fans. I think the culture of the city, though, everybody kind of moved on. What I'm kind of interested in now is will there be real rallying around San Diego State now, because they're going to be the only show in town from a football perspective?
I do remember when they were moving, right? San Diego State was actually pretty good. I mean, they had Donald Pumphrey, Rashad Penny, and they won back-to-back Mountain West championships in 2015 and 2016, and there was some rally, right? But even with the success of San Diego State, I mean, I'll say it, there's too much to do in San Diego. Who the hell's following the football team, man? I mean, it's just too much to do. And I do think that that's not an excuse, right? I still think San Diego could fit a football team, but if you don't have a sick-ass stadium, a sick-ass atmosphere, there is just so much other things I'd rather put on my plate in terms of what I could do. You can snowboard and ski in the same day in San Diego. That's where you're at, man. This is a different breed, okay? This city is a different breed. So you better have a really cool, badass venue. And I think that Qualcomm/San Diego Credit Union Stadium just wasn't that. And obviously Spanos followed the money to LA, where obviously everyone does.
Are there Chargers fans that like you, like Austin being a kind of quote unquote still a Raiders fan? Were there still? I think I can ask this question generally to both of you guys with the Chargers and the Raiders. Did fans carry their fanship over?
I know of some people who will go to SoFi when they can, who really love the Chargers, really, really love the Chargers. There is a certain kind of subculture within sports fandom out here where that does exist. But to Austin's point, the big thing is that fundamentally, San Diego's kind of a transient town, right? We have one of the biggest military populations in the country. We're right next to a port. Basically, almost every branch of the military has a base out here. So you have that as a piece of it, and then you get a lot of people who move out here, right? So because of that, you're not talking about people who are I'm in my third generation now. My granddad was the first guy to take me to a Chargers game, and I fell in love with the sport through that, et cetera, et cetera. That does not really exist. It's a lot more of hey, if I'm from Denver and I wanted to move further west or get to a nicer place and I end up in San Diego or even in the Inland Empire like Temecula, I'm going to go when the Broncos are playing the Chargers. Mm-hmm. If I'm a Raiders fan, I'll buy any ticket I can to go take a weekend off in San Diego to go watch them play. And the same thing exists in Los Angeles. There is no diehard fan base there in the way that there is for the Raiders. I think that, from Oakland to Las Vegas, if you're looking at it from the franchise's perspective, it was a safe bet because you're covered on both ends. Early, while they're price gouging, which is what's happening with their ticket prices to get people in there, you're bringing in the whole tourist attraction of, hey, you're going to go to the black hole, you're going to go to whatever they're calling it now, the Death Star, I guess, and you're going to watch the Raiders play your favorite team. But they can still rely on the fact that it's not a far drive from the Bay Area to get to Vegas.
It's about 5 hours.
And, as far as national fan bases go, it's basically the Steelers, the Cowboys, and the Raiders in the NFL, is that kind of top three where you can go anywhere in the country and you're going to bump into people on the sidewalk that's wearing the memorabilia or, wearing the apparel, that's proud of it, that's got a tattoo of their arm of the logo that can tell you about the first most important game in their life. That doesn't really exist for Chargers fans. So I think that there has been a lot of kind of atrophying of the fandom. I don't bump into people as often the way that I used to, in 2009 and 2010, that were willing to kind of, lament the fact that, oh, Nick Folk missed a field goal in the wild card, and now we're not, we could have been a Super Bowl contender, but we're not, or that 14-2 team, you guys remember that? You don't hear that in the same way now that you did when the team was here, and a lot of that just kind of comes down to the culture of the city. There's too many things to compete with, and the people here are not necessarily San Diego naturals and the people who are here, born here, the Latino and Latina population, the people of color out here that are probably a lot more the diehard fans in San Diego. They don't really get much time in the spotlight talking about what the team meant to them, and the decision to move didn't really have anything to do with them in the first place. They weren't kept in mind. So, we're kind of lost, kind of lost out here as a fan base. It's basically the same thing that happened to the Clippers when they were out here and then left for LA.
All right. Let's stay on the Las Vegas Raiders. They have a huge game coming up against the Jesus. I didn't do that on purpose. Against the Los Angeles Chargers.
That was terrible.
To see if they make the playoffs, basically. Austin.
Mm-hmm.
We have not talked about the Raiders at all of this podcast this whole year. Can you explain to the listeners what is going on this year? I guess we can stick to on the field. Most people know what's gone on off the field. Yeah. On the field, what's happened to the Raiders? Why are they where they are? Whether that's, I don't know if it's above expectations. I don't even know if it's below your expectations. Where are they?
I mean, I think from a betting perspective, it's exceeding expectations, right? I think their win total was set at 6.5. They've already cleared that. They've exceeded some expectations there, even though going through obviously a lot of off-field turbulence. I mean, it's hard to speak to a lot of that stuff. It's all fucking shitty, but it's sudden. If you can blanket one term, it's sudden, right? Sudden losses of Gruden, sudden losses of Ruggs. I mean, you could even call the loss to Waller, right? Darren Waller hasn't played since week 12. That has been obviously a concern. The sudden move of Alex Leatherwood from right tackle to right guard. There's a lot of suddenness that has not been great for the Raiders team. And I think I tweeted something out, and a lot of people had some hate around it that that Derek Carr has been really impressive down the stretch for hanging on and keeping this team alive. And box score grading, he has not been all that impressive down the stretch. But it's been in these clutch moments, right? And it's keeping this team competing that I think has been so impressive. There is a lot of reason for this team to go full Giants, and just fucking punt on this season with the losses that they've had at receiver and the losses obviously to the coach and some of the bad losses they had soon after some of those tragedies, right? They were down and out, I think, a few weeks ago. You wouldn't have even thought about them competing for a playoff hunt down the stretch. So Derek Carr as a leader, I think, has been a big part of that. And he's been in the clutch. Go back and watch that drive for the Colts. Against the Colts, where first drive goes down on fourth down, hammers that one into Hunter Renfrow, they score. And then to clinch the game-winning field goal, has an absolute dime to Hunter Renfrow over the top. I think it was over the top of Kenny Moore to put them in field goal range and eventually win that game. He has been really impressive in these clutch moments. Now, why are you in these clutch moments, Derek Carr? Because you did throw some pretty bad picks, because you did have some of these fumbles. He has been a turnover machine. I mean, I think if Daniel Jones didn't exist, there'd be a lot more conversation about the amount of turnovers that Derek Carr has had, specifically fumbles. I think he has the most fumbles of any player in the NFL since he entered the league in 2014. And I think the most fumbles lost as well. Turnover-worthy play rate a bit low because he is a bit conservative. His average depth of target does range on the lower end. But fumbles have been really shitty for Derek Carr. As for this game, they're not favored. They're 3-point dogs at home in Vegas in the Death Star. But there's part of me that wants to believe in this magic, right? Maybe it's the fandom kind of sneaking through. I think the reasons to doubt them is Derek Carr has not played well in quarters 1 through 3 so far down the stretch here. Their defense has kind of regressed. And people bring up points per game and they've played better. It's all that stuff. Their pressure rate has dropped week in and week out. They've done a better job at containing Max Crosby. There's a reason Max Crosby's not into the Defensive Player of the Year race anymore. He's gone against the better tackles. They're double teaming him a lot more. They know that he's the force. In the beginning, he kind of came out of nowhere, one of the biggest breakout players in the NFL. Now they're kind of honing in on him a bit more. They've had some injuries to the secondary. I do think that this defense has regressed slightly from a pressure percentage. And the other reason to doubt them is the offensive line. This offensive line stinks. Yeah, it is a bottom 5 offensive line in pressure rate allowed. Derek Carr is under pressure on 39% of his dropbacks, which is a top 5 rate in the NFL. It is difficult to play well, especially when you don't have receivers that consistently create separation. Hunter Renfrow is probably the best separator on this team when Waller isn't healthy, and he hasn't been. Now, he's expected to practice this week. Whether or not he plays, obviously, is still TBD. If he plays, it's a big change of pace for this game as well. On the other side of the ball, or on the other side of this one, the Chargers, really good quarterback. I mean, I think he's in the conversation for, if you had to pick a quarterback for the next 5 years, he's in this tier after Mahomes, right? Mahomes is one.
I think Herbert is one.
I was going to say,
over
I think
Mahomes?
It's Herbert.
Dude, I don't know, man.
I'm open to being an idiot. I'm open to being an idiot over this, but I think that Herbert is the answer right now.
It's fair. No, I mean, I'm willing to have that conversation. Regardless, he's one of the top 2, top 3 guys, right? Like, if you're going to pick a quarterback in the NFL right now, he's one of the top 2, top 3 guys. I'm not ready to have the Herbert versus Burrow conversation, just not yet. We've already went on Diggs. I think for the Chargers, though, they have a really good quarterback. I mean, I think they have an underrated receiving core. Jalen Guyton has played a lot better for them this year. I like Josh Palmer. Mike Williams is great. Keenan Allen. Their offensive line, I mean, if Rashawn Slater has been so impressive this year. Easily one of the most impressive rookies this year. Corey Linsley is the number 2 graded center behind Creed Humphrey, and Creed Humphrey gets all the love. But Linsley was a big free agent acquisition for them, too. Austin Eckler finally looks healthy. Looks healthy and is playing well. Defensively, you have faith in Joey Bosa. You have faith in Derwin James. And when that defense is healthy and Staley's cooking, they're a tough team to beat. It's why they're favored by 3, right? It's why the Chargers are favored by 3 on the road. They match up better. I think it's going to come down to who has the ball late in this one, though. If the Raiders keep it close, I like Derek Carr in the clutch. That's where they've been at home. I think that's where it kind of comes out. I think I do pick the Raiders on the money line for here.
I don't hate that. The way that I've been looking at the Chargers all season is like they're in the same kind of tier with the Bengals, and we talked about this, I think, earlier this week, like these kind of like ultimate one-game sample teams. Like you can sell me on any outcome with the Chargers. You can tell me that Herbert's gonna step out, throw for 380 yards and 4 touchdowns, and I'm not gonna bat an eye. And you can tell me that the defense is gonna give up 450 yards, and I'm not gonna bat an eye at that either. So there's no real telling. I will say that like if Darren Waller is healthy and they have a guy that you can occupy a Derwin James with, so you can go attack some of the other holes that the Chargers have in their roster, that is a big deal for Las Vegas. And I would really like them to pull this game out. I think if they're at full strength offensively, for all the issues, or not issues, but I guess some of the aggression that they've had with their pass rush, I do think, but just like we were talking about Micah Parsons and Dan Quinn, I think that, having another guy in the Legion of Boom coaching tree and Gus Bradley there with Max Crosby, with Yannick Ngakoue, like another perfect kind of match. These guys who can tear off up the field and create all this havoc has been really good for them. Not only have they been in the top 5 basically in pressure rate over a long stretch of the season, they've also been like in the top 5, top 10 in like pass rush win rate, meaning that they're whooping guys' asses off the edge. It's not just, hey, we're crushing the pocket and getting a late effect on the quarterback. They're outright winning on a lot of these. And for that reason, I'm thinking like, again, one-game samples, you're talking about getting after a guy and forcing him to maybe be a little bit more uncomfortable than what you would typically expect, or putting Herbert in situations where he's got to be perfect. I think that this game can go either way, and if the Chargers don't have that run game that can set up their play-action shots the way that they've liked it, that's really where I think that Las Vegas can come out with this win.
I'll say it as a neutral. I shouldn't say it like that. But kind of, I think I'm speaking for a lot of people when you kind of like, who do you want in the playoffs? Who do you want to watch in the playoffs?
Oh yeah, Herbert.
If you're asking me about entertainment, I want the Chargers in there.
From a content perspective, it's Chargers the whole way. We want Herbert Burrow in the postseason at some point.
Yes,
that's what we want. Like
with Allen, Herbert, Burrow, and Mahomes all in one half of the bracket on the AFC side, you're gonna get some 2 or 3 of those combinations before the playoffs are out, which I think is going to be. That is so fun to think about, and especially going forward.
And you know what the worst part about that is? That means that the guy who's leaving the AFC is going to be Mac Jones. We're going to get all these quarterbacks are going to knock each other out, and we're going to have to deal with the Patriots and with Mac Jones. We're not going to get the best quarterback representing the AFC in the Super Bowl.
I do think that's an underrated element, though. If Derek Carr winning and the Raiders going in is just such a dud for the narratives, right? Like, I mean, you think about the discourse on Twitter in island games when Derek Carr is playing. There's no polarization, right? Because everyone's just like, yeah, he's kind of okay. He's not that good. But when Herbert's playing, it's like, oh man, he's terrible. I knew he was terrible. He can't play. And then there's other times where it's like, oh my God, he's got this all crazy shit. But I think it's I want Herbert in from a content perspective. The Raider fan in me is all in on Derek Carr, taking him in.
So boy. Okay, let's switch over to the NFC and let's talk about I believe I probably should look this up, but I believe the last spot is for one of 2 teams that would either be the Saints or the 49ers. Saints win and 49ers lose. Saints are in, and I think the 49ers just have to win regardless of the Saints score. If you are going to be playing one of those teams, who do you not want to see if you're an NFC team? Saints or 49ers?
I think it is the Saints, to be honest. I do think that defense, I think Renner on our podcast said that they just give good quarterbacks fits, and those are hard defenses to find in the NFL these days. And as for San Francisco, I know they have talent on that side of the ball, but they do not have the defense that the New Orleans is trotting out right now, and they've had a lot of success this year. So I do think that New Orleans can kind of play spoiler to some of these teams. I mean, as they have, right? Tampa Bay might be the 2 seed. You let Saints sneak in as the 7. I mean, this thing's a ball game. I mean, the Saints have had Tom Brady's number for quite some time now. I mean, that could be a legitimate one and done for a very injured Bucs team. I'll tell you right now, the Bucs do not want to see the fucking Saints. That's a fucking fact. The Bucs with no Chris Godwin, no Antonio Brown, no Leonard Fournette potentially, no Levante David potentially. This team is banged up to all hell. Starting Cyril Grayson and Tyler Johnson out there, that's not enough. I mean, I think the Saints team could really lock in on them. The Bucs should be scared shitless if the Saints get in, and I think the most likely scenario is that the Saints get in. They need to win, and they're favored, I think, 4.5 over the Falcons on the road, and they need the Rams to win. The Rams are favored by 4 at home. If the 2 favorites win, the Saints are in and the Niners are out. That is a scary situation for the Bucs. So much that here comes the
Here we go,
hairbrain here. Here comes the hairbrain. The Bucs don't want to win this game. The Bucs don't want the 2 seed. The Bucs don't want to see Saints round 1. Let the Rams take on the Saints round 1 and maybe kick them out. Let that discourse play out. Because if the Bucs see the Saints while they're still unhealthy, give them a couple more weeks to get some of these guys back, I think they'll be in a better position. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying this. The Bucs aren't resting players and fucking shit like that. But I do think that the Bucs are in a better situation when/if the Saints get in to not play them in the first round. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I think that, kind of similar to what Seth was saying, what do we want to see? I would like to see Trey Lance play more football. That would be ideal for me because I think that, obviously you contextualize it by playing the Texans. I think every quarterback in the league would like to be able to see the Texans. But he looked good. And not only did he look good, it looked good in a way that makes you think okay, maybe Shanahan does have a quarterback that not only adds something in the run game, but you can also get a little bit more vertical in the passing game. And I would like to see that in a playoff environment, knowing what we know about him in terms of scheming up run games against good defenses, for one, and the way that play action game has kept quarterbacks efficient for them. But to your point, Austin, you talk about the way that the Saints play defense. I don't see a way that the 49ers can score enough. I absolutely hate to watch them play offense. It is the most arduous task in the world. Seth has obviously talked about this at different points in the year. It is not a great time watching them.
Every podcast I talk about the Saints, yes, that's right.
Yeah. So I don't – it's not the most inspiring pick for me, but again, we talk about styles making fights, the fact that Marshawn Lattimore can always go and just lock in on whoever your number one receiving threat is. You have DeMario Davis as a guy who can match up with George Kittle. They have all the pieces that you need in terms of do we have a guy for their guy? They've got the dudes to be able to match up with San Francisco's best players. And I've loved what they've done with their defensive line. Seth and I kind of talk about it from a schematic perspective, the way that they're able to play these 2 high safety shells and take away these explosive passes. But they also have these humongous monsters up front who can tear off up the field and cancel gaps. And DeMario Davis, who can help you out with that as well. And that allows you to play the way that they do. And it's been great for them, and I have no reason to believe that it's going to be any different when they match up with San Francisco. And for that reason, I do think that I'm probably leaning for New Orleans to go ahead and pull this thing out and be the last playoff team in the NFC.
I saw that tweet, and I wish I could source it and give credit to whoever put it out there. But it was the record of teams if you flipped all the one-score games from wins to losses and losses to wins. And the Buccaneers would not be in the playoffs. I think they'd be 7-10. And now, so you're talking about a team that has a bit of a Super Bowl hangover, and that was a lot of those games were with the players that they're not going to have going forward. That scares me a lot if I was a Tampa Bay fan, and I'm certainly not a Tampa Bay fan, but that would scare me a bunch. Looking at what they're going to have to do without. First of all, Chris Godwin, because they've tried to put Tyler Johnson in the slot. I don't know if he's that. He's certainly not Chris Godwin, and I don't even think he's that type of player. He's, if I remember, at Minnesota, he was more of an outside receiver. When he played for the Gophers, so that's kind of his body type, like a one-on-one type of outside receiver. Now you're going to put him in the slot, have him run all those routes that Godwin likes, all those option routes, all those routes that Brady has liked over the years, those short option routes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the player. Scotty Miller is a guy who hasn't played a lot this year. He was the hero in Green Bay in the NFC Championship game last year. He hasn't gotten any run. And then it's like, okay, well, at least we have Antonio Brown. Well, no, you don't have Antonio Brown anymore. And you're putting in, like you said, Silo Grayson, who it's not Antonio Brown on the outside. That scares me. They haven't been as good as their record this season. And now you lose those guys. And the run defense wasn't good in the past month.
It's funny because I think people would ask in the preseason, a good content piece was what's the weak link for all these teams, right? What's the weak link for the Bucs? And it was you can't even say injuries. They're so deep. They got Godwin, Brown, Evans, Gronk, Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, everyone, their offensive line is stacked. But you get a wave of injuries like this, right? That is the weak link. If you get hurt that bad, and they've gotten obviously pretty badly injured, same positions, right? Losing Leonard Fournette, losing Antonio Brown, losing Chris Godwin, all these skill players on offense. It has been a significant loss. The only reason they're still in games is they got TB12, right? They got that diet. That diet is flying high right now. The Tom Brady diet, they'll not miss. I will say this I will never stop saying this. As long as you got Tom Brady under center, you are in Super Bowl contention, period. I don't care if you are trotting out practice squad players. Tom Brady put you in that position. It's why they've won these one-score games, dude. I mean, it's why you look at this Jets game, they should have lost that game. And they're able to come back and hit Cyril Grayson in stride for a touchdown. What the hell? I know the Jets defense kind of missed on that one, but Tom Brady still gives them a good route. They don't want to see good defenses right now. Unfortunately, the NFL doesn't have a ton of those. One of those is the Saints. So I think the Saints getting in would be a bad news Bears situation if the Bucs got to play them in the first round.
All right, let's finish this off with a little bit of hashtag CFB talk. Presented by. Do you guys know who it's presented by? Pro Football Focus. Because if you go on PFF.com and put in a promo code TWOHIGH, that's TWOHIGH, you can get 25% off any PFF subscription. And what do you get? What do you get from a PFF subscription? Well, all of PFF's locked article content. You get PFF's NFL and college football betting dashboards. By the way, NFL Greenline is up 27 units this season. College Greenline up 32 units this season. 0 to 100 grades of every single player, including the top rookies on every team. Player prop tool, which shows positive and negative value for every NFL prop, and much, much more. Support the pod. Use promo code TWOHIGH, TWOHIGH, for 25% off any subscription. Also, if you go and email contact@pff.com, tell that email that you are a listener of Too High. Answer these two questions. What PFF feature do you love the most? What do you want the most from PFF? And yeah, we'll try and answer those questions and make our product better. Okay, college football.
The company, man.
It's crazy.
I love it.
Let's talk about the last game of the college football season, national championship. We get in the rematch. Austin, we'll start before we get you into predictions and how you think the game is going to play out. Give me, 5 or anybody your top players to watch from a draft perspective, and maybe an underrated player that you really like. That it's hard to be underrated on either of these two teams. Yeah. However, maybe there's a guy that you think is maybe more of a late round pick that you really like.
Yeah, I think so. For this one, we have right now on PFF's draft board 13 players in this game are in the top 100. Actually, in the top 75. That's how talented this team is. I mean, I think I'm not saying any names people don't know, right? Evan Neal, the offensive tackle for Alabama, Nakobe Dean, linebacker for Georgia. Jameson Williams will play in this game, even though did not have an insane game as in Cincinnati. I think part of that was part of running as many bunch sets as they did, running a ton of zone. They were able to run the football. Regardless, Jameson Williams, a big player in this one. Jordan Battle, safety for Bama. Jordan Davis, the Georgia defensive tackle. Those are all guys ranked inside of PFF's top 32 and probably the top 5 players in this game. I think as an underrated player, right, I love the other Georgia linebacker. I think Channing Tindall is fucking dope.
Oh my God,
Channing Tindall is sick. I think that is. He's not underrated, dude. He's a top 50 player on PFF's draft board. He's sick. I mean, underrated in terms of everyone knows who Jordan Davis is, who wrongfully won Defensive Player of the Year in college football. Whatever. We can get on and on. But I think that I still really like Channing Tindall. I think his game is awesome, and I think Georgia just continues to throw out talent. And I think really excited to talk to a lot of these players, right? I think on the draft podcast or the Tailgate podcast, I do a lot of the conversations. I think talking to Georgia players might be my favorite, right? Because I always bring up their Tuesday practices. They call them Bloody Tuesdays, where all they practice is the run game. And they just play run defense for like 4 hours or something. I remember talking to...
It fucking shows.
It shows. Who was I? I mean, they had a defensive... John Ledbetter, who was like a 6th or 7th round pick. He might be still in the NFL. I mean, his face lit up when you bring up Tuesdays. It's like, this is the best day of the week. I mean, it's when we really like... It's when it really gets competitive and like they go 100% and all this stuff, which I think is awesome. So the Georgia players, man, I think they're always good interviews. So I'm excited for this game. I think there's a ton of talent to watch. The key matchups, right? Seeing Evan Neal against this defensive line, regardless of who he's going against, there's a ton of talent on that Georgia defensive line. Trayvon Walker for Georgia is one of the other guys that I think a lot of people will rise up boards when people watch more of the Georgia players. Like a lot of people are like Dean, Neal, or that's Bama, but like Dean, Davis are these two players that everyone's talking about. But as people turn on the tape a little bit more, I think Tyndall, Trayvon Walker, those will be other guys that like, man, I actually might like this guy more. So I do think that I'm excited for draft season to really kick off where people start turning on the tape and hashtag grinding it. So I think it's going to be a good one.
I rewatched the Bama offense against Georgia this afternoon. And I keep thinking, and I know this is so stupid, and it's going to get me in trouble, but, like, I keep thinking, like, Alabama can't do this again. Like, I don't, like, and it's so stupid because they always do this to Georgia. They always score points on Georgia. But I'm watching the tape, and I'm just like, man, there's a bust here and a bust there on Georgia's defense. You know, the big Jameson touchdown. There's one where they have a wide open receiver in the flat that they don't pick up Georgia, but Bryce throws it to someone else. You have another completion down the sideline, a short completion that goes like 20 yards because no one picked up the receiver. Like, that's not going to happen again, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Right. I don't know. I think. And then I just look at Bryce Young, and I'm like, he was insane in that game. And he won the Heisman. I get it. He won the Heisman. He's an insane player. But can you go back-to-back games against a ferocious defense like this and create the plays out of structure that he created in this game? And I don't know. And again, it's going to get me in trouble because that's exactly what's going to happen. But I keep, like I said, I rewatched it and I was like, they couldn't run the football. Alabama could not run the football. Georgia's defensive line and defensive run stopping capabilities is top notch, and they just busted a couple times on the back end. And it's like, I don't know if that's going to happen again.
Yeah, you can't count on too many of those.
My thing, like, you want to talk about like outlier performances, that was the only game Georgia had that they did not convert any of their pressure into sacks. The only game. And we're talking about a team that over the course of the year is really more in that like high 30s to low 40s type of percentage of converting pressure into sacks. So to your point about like Bryce Young can't possibly do this again, it's not an indictment on Bryce Young as a player. Like, I'm not even really drawing from the Cincinnati game so much, though we did talk about it in review of like, okay, if Cincinnati can get pressure like this and affect Bryce Young, then we have to believe that Georgia can do it the second time around. If I'm only focusing in on Georgia's defense, they didn't bust coverages like that all year, so why would I believe that would happen again? Like, I've got to be able to rely on process in larger sample sizes in that. Now, to your point, like you were saying, Seth, this is also Alabama and Nick Saban, and every time I believe that this is not going to happen, it happens. Basically, the only time I've been proven right was the 2019 Clemson team that really kind of got after Alabama. But, yeah, I mean, I've got to believe that for a defense that has not only been great within the silo of 2021, but one of the better defenses we've ever seen. You know, I've heard Richard Johnson kind of make mention of this, saying that, like, we're going to think about this defense in the same kind of context that we talk about the 2019 LSU offense, in terms of, like, wow, like 9 or 10 of these guys ended up being pros and, like, 7 of them are good pros type of deal. So I do think that there is that there. And when you're talking about talent like that, you've got to be able to contextualize it and think that, all right, one game sample, I think that this will go better than it did in the conference championship game.
I guess I'm just thankful that the Lord is giving me the opportunity to bet Saban as an underdog twice in the same season, because I will do it again. I will do it again. I will bet Saban money line again. I'm not doubting this Alabama team, and I agree. I think you guys have brought up really good points on, like, broken coverages are very volatile, right? Especially for a Georgia team as talented as it is, and then also one game sample size where they weren't able to sack Bryce Young, right? And I think, but I'd be interested to hear your guys' take on this. Like, weren't you impressed with how much Alabama ran tempo and kept some of these guys on the field and did not give them an opportunity to do a lot of the, like changing guys out and like giving guys blows, like breathers, right? Like that was a huge part of this, in my opinion. I think the tempo piece was big. I think put Georgia's defense in a position that they just haven't been in, and that led to some of the kind of like mishaps on the back end. So I do think that Bama
100%. I think actually the first thing that stuck out to me in the championship game was like, I think that Jordan Davis is on the field a whole lot more than he typically
and they kept him on the field, and that was
like
obviously exactly.
It was very obvious that he was gassed, and I do think that there's an element of that, and we saw that when we played Cincinnati, right? Like this is a team that wants to play cover one and play tight coverage on everybody. Well, we're just going to go fast and start hiding our best players, and now we're going to be playing peekaboo with you in the passing game, and that opens up space in the run game. So I do think that Alabama will have something sound. Like I don't want to frame my take on this game like I'm expecting a Georgia ass whooping of Alabama. But I do think that if I'm going to talk about like potential outcomes, right? Like if I'm going to be Dr. Strange here and look at all the different ways that this game can go, I come back on average to Georgia controls the game the way that they were supposed to after they go up a couple possessions in the first quarter in the SEC title game. That busted coverage ended up changing a bunch. You stall out on offense for 2 or 3 possessions, and Alabama just marches down the field, explosive play after explosive play, and scores. I don't think that stretch of the game happens in the way that it does. And I think that because of that, some of the things that you would be most concerned about as a Georgia fan, like Will Anderson just eating Stetson Bennett's lunch, it might not be as big of a factor. Now, I will say, if they're chasing again, there's no way that I am trusting Stetson Bennett to get them back in this football game. If they're down 2 possessions, it's a wrap.
Doctor Strange is from Marvel. Austin, I know you don't watch those movies. What are the chances we see the JT Daniels off the bench come back for a Georgia championship in the same way that Alabama did it to Georgia with Tua coming off the bench a few years ago?
Can I say I have a take, and this is me as JT Daniels supporter. Seth knows this. Super JT Daniels supporter. If JT Daniels comes off the bench and into this game, Georgia is cooked. That's my take. That's my take. Okay,
I agree.
All right.
Like that's just where I'm at with it. If you can't beat Stetson Bennett out up until the point of the championship game, why in the hell would I believe that when the lights are the absolute brightest that you are all of a sudden going to be somebody that you clearly haven't been at any point this season?
And Stetson Bennett has played well, right? I mean, you look at some of the accuracy charting at PFF, and from a clean pocket, I think he ranks 3rd in like lowest percentage of inaccurate throws. Like he's been very accurate with the football. He has pushed the ball downfield. He has been aggressive in spots. I do agree, though, that this comes down to like if you get punched in the teeth and Bama runs tempo and Bama starts scoring like they can score, this Georgia team's not ready for that fucking noise. They're not ready to go like toe-to-toe in like kind of like a scoring barrage that was. They need to grind it out and do exactly what they did against Michigan. They go up to 14-0 against Michigan. That game was over. Like over. And you force them out of your hand, and they got Cade McNamara is not nearly the quarterback that Bryce Young is, and that game's done. Georgia needs to have that kind of energy early and force Bama into a situation where they can be a little bit less, more predictable in that stuff. But if Georgia doesn't get out to a lead, I think there is some concern there because Bama can score in a hurry. They've always been able to score in a hurry, and they've proved that this year too.
One thing that I noticed rewatching the game was the tempo plus, I thought, unlike in the Cincinnati game where they got into bunch sets, they did get into bunch. I mean, this is what they do. This is what Alabama does. But I did feel like they were very spread. Like slot receivers were as wide as they possibly could, and I think it created a lot of one-on-ones. We talk about this. Me and Jonathan talk about this all the time. Like the more spread you are, the more one-on-ones you're going to get, and it alleviated some parts of the field for Alabama to work into. There was a nice little option route from they put like 3 players into the short side of the field. Let their 2 slot receivers. I'm not sure it was Mechie or Jameson. Mechie's obviously not playing this week. Let him wide to the wide side, and then let him run the option route. There's no one in the middle of the field because they want to play with 2 high safeties. The Mike linebacker, he's got to go all the way to the boundary. You have the space in the middle of the field. I thought that was something that they will try to do again. And especially if Georgia feels that they can just still sit too high, they're going to give up some middle of the field short. And then, like in saw on this one particular play, they were able to create space on the inside and get a completion there. So that was a cool thing, like the tempo plus the spread, I thought was really interesting. Final predictions. This is it. This is our last time we'll talk to you guys. Speaking to the listeners right now, talk to you guys before the championship game. Austin, prediction?
Yeah, I think this one's going to be Bama winning, obviously. I think it's going to be 34-20 Bama in a big win. I think Bama does roll this one.
I think that this one is going the exact same way the 2017 one goes. I think it's going to overtime, and I'm going to pick it to be 28-21 Georgia.
Wow.
And then I'm really going to get my heart broken because 2 days after, Caleb Williams is going to announce that he's transferring to Georgia too.
I'll say something like 20. This is crazy. Honestly, like 28-17 for Georgia. I do think Alabama has played with fire the whole year on offense. They've had some bad games on offense, and I think this could be another one. Obviously not having John Mechie there. This one, unlike they did a month ago. All right. Austin Gayle, not Austin Collinsworth. Austin Gayle, this was an absolute pleasure. Where can the people find you?
Dude, find me on your guys' podcast, okay? I'm not shouting any shit out, dude. Go to Too High. Too High is awesome. I love you guys' show. I really appreciate you guys letting me on. I remember having to reach out to fucking get on this damn show. It's a hot commodity. So I really appreciate you guys having me on. This has been fantastic. You guys are some of the smartest people I know. Definitely the smartest people at the company, sans Austin Collinsworth, obviously.
There you go.
All right. See you guys.